Hello dear students, I hope you are doing very well, and today I will explain for you section 1 from chapter 13, which is about atom. And before this chapter, in the chapter 12, I explained for you in general what's atom and what's made from atom. And so let's start with what's atom. Matter is composed of small particles. As I said, all the things around us in our life is composed of matter because it takes space. So matter is composed of small particles called atoms. And the atom is the smallest particle into which an element can be split matter and still preserve its identity. So scientists know that aluminium is made of average-sized atoms. Aluminium atoms has a diameter of about 0.00003 centimeters. That is 3/100 millionth of a centimeter. Take a look for figure number 1 and even things that are very thin aluminum foil when we are using in our eye to cover some of the plates or to put on some food that we are doing it on, we are putting in the oven. So this aluminum foil might seem thin to you, but you should stack about 1500 atoms to get the thickness of this foil. So we start and we are going to in details what's the meaning of atom, the small particles that forms an element and preserve the properties of the element. Because element is composed of atoms, then more than one or two elements, they are linked together by chemical bond. They produce a compound. So after compound we have mixture, as I explained it for you in the previous lesson. And we have here what is an atom made of. Atom, what is an atom made of, okay? Is as tiny as an atom is, it is made up of even smaller particles. Atom is small and even it is made up of smaller particles. These particles are protons, neutrons, and electrons. And we have these particles, and the electrons will be too small to see compared to the protons and neutrons. They are so small to be seen by the naked eyes. We have these parts of an atom, which is protons. First of all, nucleus. The nucleus already is in the center of the atoms. Small, dense, positively charged center of the atom. It contains most of the atom's mass. Most of the atom's mass is nucleus, take it. And we have protons and neutrons inside nucleus. Protons are positively charged particles in the nucleus of an atom, and later we have neutrons are particles in the nucleus of an atom that have no charge, but a proton is positively charged. And we have the third one, which is electrons, are negatively charged particles in electron clouds outside of the nucleus. Electron is outside of the nucleus around it, but the protons and the neutrons inside nucleus, and they are positively charged, but neutrons that not have charge. So the size of the electron clouds determine the size of the atoms. we have the nucleus as I showed you in the figure number 2. This is the atom nucleus. Inside the nucleus you have a proton nucleus, a region in the center of an atom composed of proton and neutron. And we have what's proton? Protons are subatomic particles that have a positive charge and it is found in the nucleus of an atom. So we have the mass of the proton is about 1.7 multiplied 10 square minus 24 gram, because the mass of the particles in atom are so small. Scientists made a new unit for them because the masses of the particles in atoms more smaller, and they have SI units used to express the mass of particles in the atoms. Is what they call it is AMU. This is the abbreviation word. It's A for atomic, M for mass, U for unit. Each proton has a mass of about 1 AMU, atomic mass unit. So we have what? Atomic mass unit is the unit of mass that describes the mass of an atom or molecule. Then we have neutrons, are the particles of the nucleus that have no electrical charge. As I said, neutrons are a little more massive than the protons are, but the difference in mass is so small that the mass of the neutrons can be thought of as one atomic mass unit. Proton and neutron are the most massive particles in an atom, okay? If I said proton and the neutron are the most massive particles in an atom, what is a proton and neutrons? But the volume of the nucleus is very small. So the nucleus is very dense, as we said, and they are positively charged, contain proton and neutrons. If it were possible to have a nucleus, the volume of the grade that the nucleus will have a mass greater than 9 million metric tons. Name 2, the self-check. Name 2 kinds of particles that can be found in the nucleus. 2 kinds of particles that can be found in the nucleus. Number 1 is a proton. Two kinds, they are proton and neutron. Number 2, neutron. Okay? Two kinds of the particle that can be found in the nucleus. I said the proton and neutron, okay? And we have what? I said inside the nucleus we have a proton and neutron, but outside the nucleus, around it, we have electrons, are negatively charged particles, and they're found around the nucleus within a region called electron clouds. Compared with the protons and neutrons, electrons are very small in mass compared to the proton and neutrons, and they have more than 1.800 electrons to equal the mass of one proton. The mass of an electron is so small that it's usually thought of a mass zero. The charge of a proton and electrons are opposite but equal, so their charge cancel out because an atom has to overload charge. It is neutral. And what happens if the number of these electrons and the protons What happens if the number of electrons and the protons are not equal? An atom that loses or one or more charged particles. An atom, if it is loose, one or more charged particles called an ion. An atom that loses one or more electrons become a positively charged ion. An atom that gain or take one or more electrons become a negatively charged. In general, electron, a particle forming the atom that has a negative charge and that is found outside the nucleus. If I said what's found outside of the nucleus, electron, proton or neutron, you must say electron because we said it's negatively charged and it's outside of the nucleus. And how does an atom become a positively charged? If the atoms that lose one or more electrons become positively charged ions. Okay? This is the answer of it. An atom that loses one or more electrons become a positively charged ions. Okay? If they lose one or more electrons. Okay? This one and this one is so important. Memorize it, okay? Keep focus on the what I said is important. How do atoms of different elements differ? There are more than 114 different elements. The more atoms of each of these elements are different from the atoms of all other elements. What makes atoms different from each other? To find and imagine that you could build an atoms by putting together protons, neutrons, and electrons, because as we said, the atoms they are formed and protons and electrons are found in all atoms. The simplest atom is made up of just one of each. It is so simple, it doesn't even have a neutron. To build this atom, put just one proton in the center of the atom from the nucleus, then put one electron in the electron cloud. You have just made a hydrogen atom. This is the proton, neutron, nucleus. Outside of it, which is electron. All of these are called atom. Addition of neutrons. Now build an atom that have two protons, and both of the protons are positively charged. These two protons, they are positively charged, so they repel on another. You cannot form a nucleus with them unless you add some neutrons for this atom. Two neutrons will do. This is the two neutrons because, as we said, the atoms made up of small particles. They are called proton, neutrons, and outside of the nucleus is electron. So to have a neutral charge, your new atom will also need two electrons. This is also one and two electrons outside the nucleus. This and what you have is an atom of the element helium. A model of this atom is shown in figure number 3. This is simply. And now if we are coming to building bigger atoms, you could build a carbon atom using 6 protons, 6 neutrons, and because in the simple electrons we build it, it's about 2 protons, 2 neutrons, and 2 electrons. But if we are going to build a bigger atoms, we must to add more protons, more neutrons, more electrons. 6, 6, 6 they are. You could build an oxygen atoms using 8 protons, 9 neutrons, and 8 electrons. You could even build a gold atoms within 79 protons, 118 neutrons, and 79 electrons. As you can see, an atom does not have to have equal numbers of protons and neutrons. Okay, because this is one number, this is, and it's not equal. Okay, because as we said, proton and electron, they are equal in number. They are opposite to each other because of their positively or negatively charged, but they are even, they are equal. Proton and atomic number. How can you tell which element these atoms represent? The key is the number of a proton. The number of a proton in the nucleus of an atom is the atomic number. All atoms of an element have the same atomic number. Every hydrogen atom has only one proton in its nucleus, because we said proton is inside the nucleus located, so hydrogen has an atomic number of 1. Every carbon atom has 6 protons in its nucleus, so carbon has an atomic number which is 6. Atomic number, the number of a proton in the nucleus of an atom. The atomic number is the same for all atoms of an element. So now we are going to, coming to the isotope of an atom that has the same number of a proton as other atoms of the same elements, but they don't have the same number of neutrons, and they are different in the neutrons. The new atoms, another isotope of hydrogen, because isotopes always have the same number of protons, they have the different numbers of neutrons, which give them different masses. Okay, what is the properties of the isotopes? Isotopes of an element share most of the same chemical and physical properties. For example, all 3 isotopes of oxygen are colorless and odorless gases at room temperature. Each isotope has the chemical property of combining with the substance as it is burnt. Some isotopes of an element have special properties because they are unstable. An unstable atom is an atom with a nucleus that will change over time. This type of isotope is radioactive. Radioactive. And that will change over time. This type of radioactive atoms spontaneously fall apart after a certain amount of time. As they do, they give off smaller particles as well as energy. The isotope is a hydrogen atom that has 1 proton and 1 neutron in its nucleus. Telling isotopes apart, you can identify each isotope of an element by its mass number. Mass number is the sum of the proton and neutrons in an atom. Electrons are not included in an atom's mass number because their mass is so small that they have very little effect on the atom's total mass. Because of that, the mass number, they are sum of the protons and neutrons. This is the isotopes of boron. 5 protons and the neutrons is 5. Mass number equal 5 plus 5, it will be 10. And protons is 5, neutrons is 6. Mass number of both of them is 11. We have naming isotopes. To identify a specific isotope of an element, write the name of the element followed by a hyphen and the mass number of the isotope. A hydrogen atom with 1 proton and no neutrons has a mass number of 1. Its name is hydrogen 1. Hydrogen 2 has no 1 proton and 1 neutron. The carbon isotope with a mass number of 12 is called carbon 12. And what is